Welcome to the latest special edition of the Trojans Wired podcast. The podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We're part of the College Wire Network. So Cece and I have told you on previous podcasts, if there's big off-season news, we're going to come at you with a special podcast. So big off-season news, Avery Howell in the transfer portal. I'd say that rates as big news. Without further ado, Cece Clay. Tell us what you're hearing. Tell us what you think. Give us the inside scoop.
Yeah, so to be honest, watching the timeline today with all the rumors and everybody going back and forth, I'm just like sitting with my arms crossed, watching everything now. Um, I, you know, I want to say that I knew, kind of, sort of, but I'm not Talia Goodman. I'm not Skim Mulkey. I'm not Raul. I'm
Sabrina
not those
Merchant.
guys. Yeah, I'm not those guys that want to be the first ones to say this person's going in transfer portal. That's not what I do. I'm all about analytics and all that kind of
Talking
stuff.
ball.
So
Yeah.
talking ball. So I'm not that breaking news type of person. But here's what I will say. I will say a couple things about my take on this, which people have already seen on the Twitter feed, and that is I I don't know why people are surprised because this is the day and age of the transfer portal. And just like you saw, other players from teams like Tanaya Lapson, you see a lot of movement right now because everybody is a free agent. Everybody is, right? So until the NCAA decides to put a contract piece in place, it's going to be crazy, and every year. And part of that reason is because this younger generation, one, have opportunities to make more money than they've ever had the ability to make before. And two, this younger generation is all built on instant gratification, right? And I truly believe that. And when I mean instant gratification, it means they want success now. They want it now. And if they can't get it now, something's wrong. They're not who they're supposed to be. Where I come from, a generation that you had to work for it, or you watered your grass where you're at. You know what I mean? And you build yourself, and you are a good teammate, and you understand, how to work as a team. Now it's different, and people can be happy with that. People don't have to be happy with that, but to me, it's just a reality of where we are in this world, in this NCAA world right now. But I will say, if the NCAA doesn't fix this quickly, they're going to end up hurting themselves. And it's going to get skewed to where only certain universities are going to be drawing people because they have the money to pay, like it's doing now. A lot of mid majors are unable to recruit the good players, and it's just going to weaken the NCAA. So they have to get something in place quickly. Now, before I go on to why I think Avery went into the portal, what do you what do you think about the whole NIL and the portal and the transfer thing?
Well, I just want to affirm and second what you said about, hey, this is an opportunity. And on our transfer portal preview show with Cameo Williams, and folks, if you haven't listened to that podcast, it's a superb conversation with CC and Cameo. They both did an outstanding job. You want to listen to that? You want to go to CC's YouTube channel where that podcast is posted, and of course, be sure to like and share each and every podcast that CC puts up at her USC women's basketball channel, which is titled Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball. So in that podcast we did with Cameo Williams just earlier this week, and actually, just full disclosure, we're recording this podcast Wednesday night. We recorded it Tuesday afternoon. So that podcast is just 30 hours old, and we already have fresh new intrigue in the portal. But anyway, we talked on that podcast about, the transfer portal movements that we were expecting. We talked about Olivia Miles of Notre Dame, not being a good fit for USC. But yes, these are big opportunities. And one thing that you brought up, CC, with Olivia Miles is with NIL, she's going to get paid more in college next year than the WNBA with that salary and contract structure.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really good. if you can get paid more to play your truncated college basketball schedule than you do for a longer, more grueling professional schedule, yeah, why wouldn't you jump at that? That's objectively a better deal. You face a lot less media scrutiny as well. Why not cash in on NIL at the collegiate level as other college stars are going to do as well? It's not just an Olivia Miles thing. So first, that point really just needs to be reaffirmed about NIL. It's a big opportunity. It's a new landscape. This was not available to women's basketball players a decade ago. So by all means, like they should be jumping at this opportunity. And we want to wish Avery Howell the best. She gave everything to USC this year. And, we can obviously imagine, hey, Juju Watkins might not play for a couple months next season. That's the kind of thing it could certainly influence a young athlete's decision just a little bit, if not a lot. So, let's not instinctively think that, oh, her relationship with Lindsey Gottlieb must have soured. No, I think Juju Watkins, maybe not being part of the picture, or at least Avery Howell not having absolute certainty about that, one would think that, yeah, that might have influenced where she wants to play college basketball next season. So we wish Avery Howell the best. And my reaction to this just right after you told me, Cece, I was watching the Dodger game, is that, this is a revolving door. You mentioned it yourself. This is now, free agency is in college sports, and its label is the transfer portal. So this is revolving door. This is basically just the women's basketball version of free agency in the NFL. It's the musical chairs and where everybody lands. And it's interesting. A lot of people might not like it, this new development, but again, it's reality. And I think the undercurrent there is we shouldn't view these athletes dimly. They're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. The whole world's in front of them. More power to them, right? And many of us who've been covering college sports for a long time have said, we want athlete freedom. We want athlete empowerment. Well, here it is. All right. So I'm not suddenly going to say, oh, this is bad. This is horrible. Lack of loyalty, blah, blah, blah. No, this is what we want for these young athletes that previous generations of athletes didn't have. They didn't have this opportunity. So more power to these athletes. And the final thing I would say before I turn it back to you, Cece, is just, Avery Howell, really good player, but USC can find elite players in the portal, right? Lindsey Gottlieb can find elite players in the portal. And this is just a chance to build the new roster. And I think just the added last piece to say is, of course, Lindsey Gottlieb is going to be asked by every portal candidate, hey, what's the deal with Juju? What's her timetable? Lindsey Gottlieb can now have a fresh conversation with each transfer portal candidate and say, well, there's this timeline and there's that timeline. And, if you're open to whatever might happen, we'd love to have you here. And that way, the players that she does get in the portal, they will have bought into Lindsey's vision, no matter what the path, which path or which scenario comes to light. Where Juju makes a quick recovery, Juju makes a slower recovery, that player will be invested in playing for USC, playing for Gottlieb, playing for this program. So, it's just a chance to get people who are all in on next season, and that just presents an opportunity. So I don't view this as a negative. I think Avery Howell was going to do really good things if she continued at USC, but you can just get it. There are plenty of really good players that are available there, Cece.
Yeah. And before we go on, shout out to Juju for winning Naismith Player of the Year. So congratulations to Juju. And what I want to add to this and what I want to say is, I just think that everybody needs to calm down. I understand that a lot of people loved Avery. I loved Avery. I thought she was a great player. But if you really look at basketball, the game itself, this team and this system, if you were following Avery back when she was in Idaho and then she went to Canada and played for the Canadian team, one of the things that Avery always talked about in her documentaries or in her YouTubes or whoever interviewed her was the fact that um, she's a leader. She likes to lead on the court. She likes to be the one who communicates, to do all that kind of stuff. Um, this is a Juju Watkins team, and this is not a dig by any means. Just so I want everybody to understand, this is not a dig by any means because we need more than one leader on the team. But Avery is an alpha, and if you know the definition of an alpha, that's dominant. Wants to be the dominant player, wants to be the leader, and so on and so forth. And and that's good. That's good for her. That she wants that. Kudos to her. But is that a fit? Now, the other thing I will say about Avery and system wise is if you were Avery, right, and you had the chance to go someplace else and make more money where you can be that dominant alpha leader that you want to be, would you not take that opportunity and go? You know what I mean? The other thing I will say is that with the system that we have and with Jazzy Davidson coming in, and we have Kennedy, and then we're going to bring in some post and probably some elite shooters. Where would Avery fit? Would she be starting or would she play behind somebody still? And you have to really think about that within the system that we play. Um, the other thing I want to bring up is that last year, we had a player like Avery in Taylor Bigby, right? Taylor Bigby was a catch and three shooter. She can drive a little bit. She hustled on defense. She was a catch and three shooter, and the same thing happened. She wanted more. She wanted more, and she decided to go transfer to TCU. And she probably got as many units at TCU as she got at USC. So I'm saying that to say, players always want more because they think they can do more, but sometimes, you know, your game has to develop in order for you to gain more. Now, with Avery, we talked about this on the pod with Cameo, right? And one of the things that you asked him was about development. And the one thing that he said about Avery was she has to be able to develop off the ball. She has to be able to bounce off the ball and drive more and be able to be more aggressive and play make, right? If she wants to go to the WNBA, she can't just be a catch and three shooter and a defender, right? She has to be able, especially at her size, she has to be able to develop her game. So, so sorry, I just got a text from Ryan. Wait, Ryan. So she has to be a catch and three shooter. I mean, she has to do more than being a catch and three shooter. So I just think that when you look at the system of USC and somebody wanting more and somebody wanting to be a leader, it's like I get that, I understand that, but what more can you bring to this team? Other than what you're doing now, which is a catch and three shooter. And she just developed her 3-point shot. Now, guys, this is not a dig. I love Avery. I think she's a great player. She's a hustler. But when you look at the schematics of our team, right, and who we're bringing in, Jazzy she's a playmaker. She can do all things. She's a great defender. She can shoot off the bounce. She can drive. She's got a 3-point play. She can do all things, and she's still going to develop. Ken Dog can do all things, and I think you're going to see her get a lot more responsibility next year where she can play the post, she can drive and kick, she can shoot the three. She's going to be working on her game in the summer. And you bring in another elite shooter, just say like a Garzon or just somebody elite. Where's Avery going to fit? Because I can tell you right now, if you're looking in the portal, if I'm SC, if I'm a coach, I'm not looking in the portal um, for elite shooters that are going to be backup players. You know, I'm bringing in elite shooters that can play right now, or players that can play right now. So it's going to be interesting. The other thing I will say about this is you have to remember last year Lindsay brought in seven. Well, this year she brought in seven freshmen. Last year we lost five, so we had to refill it, and we refilled it with seven freshmen and two transfers. The year before that, we backloaded with the Ivies and two other. We backloaded with five. So the portal's portaling. And each time we brought in people, we were still able, like last year we made it to the Elite Eight. This year we made it to the Elite Eight. Now, I just want you guys to think about this. You're bringing in a class of seven freshmen that aren't like the Ivies who are kind of over themselves, just want to do whatever they can to help the team to win. You're bringing in seven freshmen that think they're better than everybody and want to play now. It's a big risk to bring in seven freshmen and hope that they all stick.
And
Honestly,
really, who would expect to retain, let's say, even six of seven freshmen, even five? Like
yeah,
the math is just too daunting there.
yeah. And honestly, the way our system is built right now, the portal system is good for us because a lot of people want to come play for USC. So the portal system, again, just like Cameo said yesterday, coaches look to the portal, then Division II, then Division III, then junior college, then high school players. So Lindsay bringing in seven freshmen, all McDonald's All-American. Well, most of them. Well, some of them were McDonald's All-Americans, but most of them were really good players. They all won state championships or whatever. It's just instant gratification. So when you come in as a freshman and you're not getting that instant gratification that you got in high school, it's a dagger. It's a dagger. So, and especially when you're a player like Avery, that is an alpha. She's an alpha. She is a hard alpha too. I mean, you can tell she likes to be in the huddle and take control, and you do this and you do that, and you know what I mean. So, uh, kudos to her. But I can tell you, she's gonna have to go to school. She's gonna have to go to a school where there's gonna be a playmaker to get her the ball because she can't create her own offense. So once again, just like Taylor Bigby, right? She's going to have to go to a school where a system she fits, where there's a playmaker that can get her the ball. Now maybe that's Iowa, where she's not the point guard, where they use a lot of motion and they have catch and three shooters all the time. But so I just want everybody to calm down. There's no tea. I just want you guys to calm down and understand the back part of the transfer portal and why these things happen. And it's all about the money, more opportunity. It's all about thinking that you can go fit in a better system. And I want to say this again without a dig, that it's hardly not looking in the mirror at yourself and saying, hey, what do I need to change about me? To be able to be successful in a college program, whether it's the program I'm in now or whether I go someplace else. That's the last thing people are looking at. The first thing is the money, and the second place is, can I go start someplace? Was Avery going to start here next year? I don't know.
Because there are portal questions. So yeah, I mean, just as a hypothetical. We're not predicting, we're not reporting. We're just hypothetical. I want to be very clear. But let's say USC brought in Yarden Garzon from Indiana in the portal. She's she's definitely starting over Avery Howell, if there is any question about that in the rotation. So yeah. And one other point to underscore: you get only three or four bites at the apple. You get only 3 to 4 years of college basketball. So that's a very small part of your life, and you're in it at a very early part in your life. So the idea of being curious, wanting to play in a different system in a different part of the country, you're not going to have this opportunity 3-4 years down the line. So it only reinforces just the nomadic nature of the portal. And again, it's not a criticism because this is something that's newly available to these athletes that wasn't available before. Cece, I know one other thing you definitely wanted to touch on in our special podcast here in reaction to the news that Avery Howell's in the transfer portal. You wanted to talk about minutes and how much of a role, if any, that might be playing in these athletes' decisions and maybe some of the other factors in play. Give us your take on what you think's the reality on the ground.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, players, especially as freshmen always think they deserve more minutes, and there were games where Avery didn't play a lot of minutes. There were games where she played a lot of minutes. There were games where she didn't play a lot of minutes. So it's a big adjustment. Did minutes have something to do with her leaving? Maybe, maybe not. Like I said, she's an alpha. She believes that she can go lead somewhere. She wants to be the leader. But my thing is, if you want to become a pro, you need to understand where you need to develop. That you got to develop your handles, you got to develop your driving ability. There's a lot more that you have to develop. Now, if you want to just go be that catch and three person, or whatever, that doesn't develop your game the way it should be developed, then yeah, you can go to a college system that will benefit you that way. That's why, she can go to a college system that has a playmaker that can play make and shoot, shoot her the ball all the time for 3 pointers. So with regards to minutes, yeah, it probably has something to do with it. But like I said, Taylor Bigby was the same way. She left here because she wanted to get more minutes, and she ended up going to TCU, and that didn't happen. So now, do I think it will happen for Avery? Yeah, if she goes to the right system. So that's the other important thing in the portal. Systems in basketball are so important. And I think the more you really, really understand the game, you understand how just going to an LSU because it's LSU might not be the right thing, as we saw with Haley Van Lith, because that system didn't fit Haley Van Lith, and she was able to excel at TCU. Now I'm not saying that this was the wrong system for Avery. I just think that Avery wants more for herself, but again, like I said, if she wants to be a pro, she has to be able to look in the mirror and understand, hey, I need to develop my dribble. I need to develop, my driving ability. I need to, develop a lot of other things if I want to be a pro. So, um, so I just want everybody just to calm down and understand the backstory to the portal and why these players jump in the portal. And again, with USC having seven freshmen coming in, it was a huge risk, right? Can we keep everybody? Who knows? Um,
But like,
and then when you
yeah,
have a
Lindsay
dominant,
Gottlieb knows what she's getting into. Like
yeah,
she would know better than anyone else that hey, you bring people in, you can't control if all of them or some of them want to leave because it's just attrition, right? You bring in seven freshmen, there's just not a seat at the table for everyone in terms of being able to play regular rotation minutes. There just aren't that many mouths to feed. So like Lindsay obviously knows. Like and for people who follow college sports, like this is what Nick Saban did at Alabama. He'd bring in a lot of recruits. This is called oversigning. He knew he wouldn't retain all of them, but by signing players in bulk, that was his way of being able to stockpile depth, knowing that some players would duck out of Alabama, but he'd still be able to retain significant numbers. So, this is just part of the business. Wanted to get your thoughts on Kaylee Heckel. I know you wanted to talk about that particular topic. Apparently, you were getting some social media chatter questions about her.
well, not really. Just I think everybody's wondering if Heckle's going to go in the portal, and honestly, I don't think she is. You know what I mean? I just don't. But if she does, you know what I mean? Again,
Follows from
this
what
is the
we've been
way.
talking about.
This is the way of the world. And again, there are other college programs where bigger players have gone in the portal. I mean, it's just, man, let me tell you something. Money is a funny thing. Money is a funny thing. It's not like back in the day, and since there's no, you have to red shirt or anything like that. Um, it just depends what type of circle you have around you and what your beliefs are and so on and so forth. So I don't have I don't have any information on Heckle. If I did, I wouldn't tell you because that's not who I am, and I keep my sources close to my chest, um, because it's not my business to tell. So I leave that up to everybody else. All I know is if it happens, we're ready for it. Either way it
And Lindsay
goes.
will be ready for it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. We're as a team, we're ready for it. It's it's to me, it's just a sad situation with the NCAA. I just wish the NCAA would come up with a contract program. They're going to have to that, if you sign with a school, you're locked in for either a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal, and you're going to get this amount of money while you're here for those 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or whatever the case may be. Otherwise, it's going to become a nasty sport. It's just not going to be good. Again, instant gratification, money, I deserve this, entitlement, all these things factor into people making decisions. And also, yeah, maybe this is not a good fit. Maybe I need to go someplace else where it could be a good fit. Sometimes the decisions are the right decisions, sometimes they aren't. We as fans never want to see players that we like or love leave, but you have to remember the only investment we have in these players are watching the games. We're not paying them any money. We don't know their family situation. We don't know anything. So the only investment we have in these players are watching the games and wanting our team to win. Other than that, we got to stop crashing out, guys, because it's not about us and what we want. It's about what the players feel like they need, what they think is best for them. And that's it. But as far as Avery, like I said, if she wants to find a system where there's another playmaker that can kick her out the ball where she can shoot threes all day, she'll be fine. But she still has to work on her game. And if she would have stayed here, just food for thought, would she really be starting? Would she be the leader that she wants to be? Would she be the dominant player that she wants to be? I don't think so. So kudos to her for having the courage to say, you know what? I love USC. I love Juju. I love this team, but I got to do what's best for me.
Yeah, in response to what you said about the NCAA needing to act, I would say this. I'm fine with players transferring each year. If you want to play 4 schools in 4 years, get exposed to 4 different localities, 4 different coaching styles, 4 different sets of teammates. Like, when you're a late teenager or 20 something, we tell you, be curious, see the world. So it should, that to me, applying that to collegiate athletics, any sport makes sense. I think where your point is especially smart and well taken is, yeah, let's just set the same market rate for each position, each slot on a roster instead of having a bidding war. Like that to me is the real wild, wild west untamed element. If you're a starter, you get this rate. If you're a backup, you get this rate. Now, obviously, that does leave its own set of thorny questions, but having some sense of a set market rate so that schools aren't, just trying to getting into a nuclear arms race. And there's like I don't know, maybe not as necessarily a salary cap, but just like this is the rate for this position. That to me seems particularly important because, there should be things that schools are throwing around money for other than sports, right? For education, for
Yeah,
for research, develop,
yeah,
things that could save lives. So I like the
yeah.
idea of, setting some defined limits and boundaries for the money that schools throw at these things. I want to give one more question from me, and then obviously I'll give you the floor for any other final remarks. But one other question is, on the show with Cameo Williams, again, folks, if you haven't caught that podcast, check it out at Cece's YouTube channel. Let's talk USC women's basketball. One other thing we talked about with Cameo, you mentioned a transfer portal candidate who might be a good fit for USC from Fairleigh Dickinson. I mentioned Fairleigh Dickinson only because of what you've talked about earlier in this show, Cece, and that is that, the nerds, the Mackenzie Forbes, Kayla Padilla, Caitlin Davis, the Ivies, they came to USC without, wanting really the prestige. They didn't need to be the lead on the team. They were happy to come to a class program, be role players, help Juju Watkins in her freshman season. Just coming from the Ivies, that just seems natural. As there was it fit culturally for them. Like they didn't have to be the big dog. They didn't have to be the alpha in the room. So does that kind of reinforce your idea that maybe Lindsay Gottlieb's best transfer candidates might be from Fairleigh Dickinson and other, mid majors, that could be the way she goes, or is it just not quite that simple? Like if you have Yarden Garzon available, you go get her because you saw USC saw up close how good she was. Just kick that around in terms of mid major versus power conference, and if that offers any insight of relevance into Lindsay Gottlieb's upcoming transfer portal decisions.
I think that, you know, when Lindsay's looking at, like I said, I think the portal system is great for USC because um, the system itself is built around Juju, right? And you have to find pieces that fit around Juju, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's why the portal pieces are so important, and that's why you saw when she picked up those Ivy players, it works so well. The chemistry happened just like that, right? Because they were over themselves. They weren't, it wasn't all the stuff that we get from freshmen. And that's not a dig again, just the maturity level. I put it like that, the maturity level was a lot different with the Ivies. So I think that, the portal, I don't know the type of players or whatever, but just the portal players in general that are older, like juniors and seniors and graduates who just want to go win. You know what I mean? That's the key, who just want to go win. And because with winning comes all the accolades anyway. You know what I mean? Like these kids transferring out of these schools might go to another school and might not have an opportunity to win a national championship, but they're making money. So which is more important to them? So I think that, Bray Cunningham was there today from Arizona. She had a visit today. So we'll see what happens with that. I think that, that'd be a good fit because USC was one of her top choices before. But I just think the portal in general is just systematically, it fits what we're trying to do as a team, to fill in spots with portal pieces, whether that be from a mid-major or from a power four. I don't know. Like I said, the power four kids are gonna ask for more money. The mid majors, I think, and the older ones are just want to go to win. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But I do want to say something else, and it's a conversation. And why I talk about instant gratification is, I have a 21-year-old son who's in the Air Force, and he's been in the Air Force. It'll be 3 years, and he's doing really well for himself. I mean, he's 21. He's doing really well for himself. He has his own place. He has his own car. He just got promoted. He's writing music. He's putting out music. And I asked him to come home in May, and he said that he didn't want to come home till November, which is his birthday. And I said, well, why not? And he said, because I don't feel like I've changed much. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't feel like you've changed much? He's like, I don't want to come home and not be better than I was than when I left. And I said, well, help me understand what you mean by that. And he's like, I want to have something. I want to say that I succeeded at something. I'm successful at something. I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm like, you graduated from high school. You're in the military, right? You're doing well in the military. You just got promoted. You have your own car. You have your own apartment. You pay for that all yourself. You have money in the bank. You know what I mean? You don't call me for anything, but yet you don't feel like you're a success. Like there are so many kids that are 21 years old that are not where you are right now. So that's why I say this generation, their thought process is so different. When I was 21, I was in the military too. I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. And yeah, I had my own place, I had my own car, and I was living life. I thought I was the most successful. I was happy to get a check for $300 a week. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean that literally, but you know what I mean? And so I never thought about I wasn't successful. I thought, I got out of my parents' house. I went to college. I went into the military. I have my own place. I have my own car. I don't have to call my parents for anything. I'm good. But the way he's like, nah, like he feels like he has to like have money. Like, he wants to be, what I mean? He wants more, which is good in a way, but it's also like Dude, look at what you've already achieved. Look at what you've done. Look at where you are. You're in a whole nother state, like across the country from me. You've already traveled. You've been to Germany. You've been to Amsterdam. You've been at 21, and it's still not enough gratification. So that's why I tell everybody, calm down. This generation, they just think differently, they act differently. Social media has a lot to do with that. People feel like they got to be rich, they got to be this. They're the way they're satisfied is different than how you and I felt satisfied back when we were 21. Their satisfaction is just it's different. It's on some other level. So, where I look at my son and I'm extremely proud of him, he wants more. Like he doesn't feel like he's done enough. You know what I mean? At 21. So these kids today, when you talk about instant gratification, they don't understand failure. They don't understand not getting it all at once. You know what I mean? The work ethic might be there, but getting it all at once is not. And that affects their whole way of living. So I just wanted to say that to the people that are listening. I know I went off on a rant, but I just had to bring that up because this generation, it's just different. They don't understand it's okay to fail. It's okay to not have everything right now. It's okay to work a little harder to get what you want. They don't understand that.
I'm going to date myself by saying what I'm saying next. I was 21 in the mid 1990s, and I just mentioned that only to say American culture was very, very different in the mid 1990s compared to right now. And I watched a few years ago on ACC Network. Wes Durham interviewed both Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams after their retirement, and there was a segment in this interview where Coach K and Roy Williams talk about how you're always coaching 18 to 21-year-olds, but you're coaching them in a different cultural situation all the time, right? Coach K started at Duke in 1980.
Yeah,
Roy Williams, started at Kansas in the late 1980s. So they had to relate to players in several different decades. And those are all very different cultural situations. So like Coach K and Roy Williams, they had to relate to the modern athlete. And I say modern athlete because like at the time you're coaching, that's modern. That's right
yeah,
now. They
yeah,
had to relate to a modern athlete before social media. That's the late 1980s. Like that's
yeah,
even before the internet. And then they
yeah,
had to relate to athletes in the late 90s, then in the early 2000s, 2010. And Coach K didn't hang up the whistle until 2022.
yeah,
So it just underscores the point that, relating to the athlete, yes, there are certain things that are always universally true about 20-year-olds, but culture is constantly changing. That's always different,
yeah,
how it was when Cheryl Miller played, when Lisa Leslie played, totally different world now. And so
yeah,
that's just helpful for everyone to remember, they're always, college sports are always going to have 18 to 21-year-olds, but the culture surrounding them, the forces that they are exposed to and the way those forces hit them, they're always changing. That's always going to be different. So want to get people to just accept. You don't have to approve of it, but accept, like make your peace with it, that culture is always changing. And
yeah,
and like and the idea that, well, in my time, in the good old days, this is how real athletes thought. Let's junk that, all right?
yeah,
Because the reality of life, the cultural forces surrounding an athlete are always different. Let each generation grow up the way it sees the world, because you can't just fit everything into a 1980s or perhaps in my case a 1990s prism in terms of when I was a young adult. It's different in each decade. That's just life. That is the cycle of life. Things change. The change might not be for the better, but you can't blame the 18, 19, 20-year-old. That person didn't create the world. That person's exposed to the world and has to make choices within that world. So
Yeah,
definitely just to underscore that we should not be criticizing or viewing dimly Avery Howell or any other athlete who makes these decisions. This is a world that in which she is and other athletes are faced with an overwhelming set of choices, and more power to them to be able to make
yeah,
choices that previous generations of college athletes didn't have available to them.
yeah. Or criticize the coaches, you know what I mean? Or blame the coaches for players leaving. The coaches don't have, you guys got to remember, the coaches don't have the control that they used to have. A lot of this stuff is done between the agents and the players. So the agents can let the player know, hey, let's talk about this. Is this a good fit for you, or I can find you a school and I can get you more NIL money. Remember, the agents make money off their NIL deals too. So if an agent thinks that a player can go get money elsewhere, that's going to be better, that they're making money too. You know what I mean? So I'm not. Again, this is nothing negative. I'm just speaking reality. There's a lot that comes into play on players deciding to leave. So you got agents involved, you got family involved, you got players involved, right? And so the coach is probably the third on the list or the fourth on the list, you know, after the family, the agent, and the player themselves. Then it's the coach. Well, coach, I'm thinking about leaving. Players probably already made up their mind because their agents in their ear saying, hey, we got an NIL deal sitting for you, or whatever the case may be.
And let's
Now I'm
just
not
and
saying
let's
that's the
just
case always. I'm not saying that's the case always, but I'm just saying that people have to realize there's more involved now with agents being in the picture than there was before.
And I'd just like to complete the circle that we began to draw with, the example of Olivia Miles. Why is she staying in school for another year? Again, it's because she can make more in NIL next season, next basketball season, than in the WNBA, or at least with the WNBA contractual situation being uncertain. It's just an
Yeah.
objectively better financial deal. And if we view the transfer portal properly as basically college sports version of free agency, it's basically just a different iteration of what we see in the NBA. And we know that the NBA is a players' league. Players have the leverage. LeBron James has the leverage. He
Yeah.
got coaches hired and fired with the Cavs, with the Lakers, and people will say as though it's a pejorative. Well, LeBron's behind the scenes. Well, yes, he is. He's a global brand. He makes gobs of money, and where he goes, you know what? It needs to be tailored to LeBron. What you're saying, an NBA team shouldn't be tailored to LeBron James? Because if it's not tailored to LeBron, he's going to go to another team. That's how professional sports works, particularly in the NBA relative to the NFL and baseball. The NBA is the ultimate player-friendly league. So when we see players having leverage in college basketball, none of us should be surprised. This is just an
Yeah.
extension of free agency. If we just make that small logical leap,
Yeah.
none of this should strike us as abnormal now. Now, maybe, 10, 15 years ago, we're still kind of getting used to it, but just in terms of the way free agency works, this is normal within the
Yeah.
context of how free agency operates.
And I would just say again, before we close this out, that Lindsay had to replace a lot of pieces for last year's team. And then Taylor Bigby left and Kayla left and went to go play for Cal. And she did very well at Cal. So kudos to her. It was the right decision for her to go transfer. But again, the portal is portaling. There's a lot of good players in the portal. So while this whole situation is going on until the NCAA decides to put a clamp on it, we just restock, guys. And we fall in love with the new players that we get, like we fell in love with Mackenzie Forbes last year and Caleb Padilla and so on and so forth. And we show this team support no matter what they do, who's on the team, and so on and so forth. So, and wish Avery Howell luck and whoever else jumps in the portal, wish them luck and show them love. But y'all quit crashing out. It's all good. It's all love. We'll be all right. we'll be okay. You know, these players got to do what's best for them and what they think is best for them, and we just got to let them be 18 to 21-year-olds, like Matt said. Just let them live. Quit crashing out, y'all. It's gonna be all right.
Amen. All right. As we close down our show, Cece, tell us what you have. I know you have a new Substack post out. And of course, all of these podcasts, the one with Cameo Williams is on your YouTube channel. What else do you have at your YouTube channel and your Substack?
Like I said, by Friday, I'll have a video up uh, showcasing the season and some of the senior players, just talking about them and their overall stats and so on and so forth. That should be a pretty good video coming out. And then just continuing to follow the portal, not giving out any news that I hear, but you know, just doing what I do
And
and
again,
having fun. And
and
can't wait to see the team that we put together.
yeah,
That's the exciting part. I don't, whoever leaves. I'm excited, and that's what you guys should be out there listening. Be excited about the team that we're gonna put together, the puzzle pieces that we put together, because it's gonna happen every year.
and folks, listening to our podcast, when USC lands a prime prospect in the portal, you know that Cece Clay is going to come out with a Substack post, and she's going to come out with a YouTube video breakdown on how that new prospect fits the X's and O's of Lindsey Gottlieb's system. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great to monitor all the developments. So when there's a new portal development, just like tonight, this was our response to Avery Howell portal news. Whenever there's a big portal development, you can count on the Trojans Wire Podcast and Cece Clay to give you a new, fresh transfer portal reaction podcast. We're going to be doing that for the next several weeks. So.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing so you guys understand. Um, in the NCAA today, as a whole, a lot of the Power Four teams have like a go-to player, right? Like Notre Dame lost a lot of players. Notre Dame lost a lot of players, a lot of big name players too, not just, but their main player was Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia. USC has Juju Watkins. UConn has Paige Beckers, and then they have everybody around Paige Beckers, which are good players too, but those players are still considered role players around Paige. And I just want to make sure that people understand in today's landscape of basketball that when you're putting teams together, you have your one or two pieces that are the dominant players, and then everybody else has got to fit in as a role player. So you're going to see ebbs and flows within the system and within teams, because the system now moving forward more and more is being built systematically, which the portal is for, of finding players that are going to be role players around that one or two superstars of your team. So just remember that that's just the reality of the way it's going. And so that's why I think the portal system is a much better system for SC to get players. I mean, it's always good to have one or two freshmen coming in. 7 was a risk, and we're just going to rebuild around what we have. So, and we still have a good core, so I'm not worried about that. But just for everybody's knowledge, not just with SC, but with the whole NCAA systematically, if you look at the portal and you look at teams, the portal is built around filling holes on your team now, that are going to be built around your system, your offensive system, your defensive system, that's going to work for you.
It's something we talked a lot about with Cameo Williams, that the modern roster construction in women's college basketball, it's not about best player available. This is not the NFL draft where you just take the best athlete available in the first round. No, it's about fit. It's about system. Definitely a point of emphasis from USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay. All right, so that's our Avery Howell portal reaction special. More transfer portal reaction episodes coming your way as events warrant. If there's a big news story on the portal relative to USC, count on Cece Clay and the Trojans Wired podcast.
one other thing, sorry, I know you got to go, but I'm just throwing this out there, where I think Avery Howell will fit, good catching three shooter. Um, Washington would be a good fit for her. Washington Huskies, close to Idaho, or yeah, she's from Idaho. Iowa, another fit for her, and probably one of the Iowa or Iowa State, either one of those two, but they just got Jada, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But when you think of where Avery can land, you look at the type of player she is, and then you got to look at the schools that would fit what she does as a player, and somebody that can have an alpha on their team. That's a huge point of emphasis too. It's got to be somebody that can allow an alpha on their team that wants to come in and be a leader and dominant. So.
And I think that's a great note to end on. We wish Avery Howell the best, and we thank her for a great year of women's basketball at USC, helping this team to win a Big Ten championship, get a #1 seed, go to the Elite Eight. Avery, if you're listening, hey, great year. Thank you, and best of luck with the rest of your collegiate and overall basketball career. All right, that's it for this episode of Trojans Wire. Cece, Clay, and I will be back at you when the next big portal news story develops. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Trojans Wired podcast.
Calm down.